Well, last year, the Fort Wayne Police Department reported 38 homicides. That's 11 more than in 2019.
But the spike in numbers here are part of a greater trend across the nation. Tonight, Caitlin Kendall is digging deeper.
Brian, Krista, behind each homicide number is a family grieving a loss. But why were there more families last year grieving than in the past? Authorities say the pandemic is partly to blame.
Are responding to a shooting this morning.
Breaking news.
A 15-year-old boy gunned down. A deadly shooting on the city's northeast side.
38 breaking news stories.
Deadly shooting in Fort Wayne.
We begin with breaking news in Fort Wayne tonight.
Just like this.
Fatal shooting here tonight.
A woman is dead and a man seriously hurt.
Dead at the scene.
Homicide in Fort Wayne spiking in 2020.
I don't know if he called my name. I don't know what his last words were.
38 families, just like this one.
I couldn't be there to hold him. I don't know if he was scared.
Grieving a child, a parent, or a friend who died at the hands of another.
His death has caused so much depression, anxiety attacks, PTSD for the people that love him.
Number 33, Justin Dawson.
It's like all the breath in me was taken out. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It took me days. I just was in shock.
Authorities named 25-year-old Justin Dawson as the victim.
25-year-old Justin Dawson was shot in the 1000 block of Ridgewood Drive outside the Summit at Ridgewood Apartments on August 28th of 2020. He died at the scene. The coroner noted several gunshot wounds.
He still had his whole life to live.
Like all 37 other victims, that life gone in an instant.
No parent should ever bury their child, especially in such a violent, horrible tragedy. And these kids need to think about that when they pull that trigger.
But their deaths reflect a harsh reality. From 2019 to 2020, the homicide rate in Fort Wayne spiked 41%.
It felt like Fort Wayne was the place you could get away with murder.
It makes you take a step back and see if you need to adjust to what you're doing.
Could drugs, crime, or something else be to blame?
I think the pandemic definitely played a role. I mean, everyone was concerned. It's placed great stress on everyone across our country.
We asked the mayor if he agreed.
I think it did. I don't think there's any question. We saw a significant increase in people having to stay home for a number of reasons, and those two put together, I think did result in, unfortunately, a significant spike in violent crimes.
I think a lot of these would have happened whether the pandemic happened or not.
Still, despite those numbers, Mayor Tom Henry has this to say.
That Fort Wayne is a city where people can feel safe. There are a number of variables you have to take into consideration. In a normal year, if you can define normal, but in a normal year, I think you could take our statistics and stand them up against any community in the country.
But the trend goes beyond the borders of Fort Wayne. Jeff Asher, who closely monitors crime statistics, says figures ticked up nationally in 2020. He studied 57 police agencies across the country and found that murder shot up 36.7% from the year before, which is the largest year-to-year increase on record by far. The previous high was an uptick of 12.7%.
I mean, it's shocking in that this is the largest one-year increase that we've ever seen nationwide.
The National Commission on COVID-19 and Criminal Justice published a report showing the national homicide spike. The part in red represents the pandemic. You see a peak nationwide in July, a dip, and then another peak in the fall.
I mean, my gut reaction is that there's something big at play. I think that when we see murder go up or down in a city, there's a tendency by policymakers, by law enforcement, to blame or credit really hyper-local explanations.
But these homicide victims are more than a number.
This is the first time I've been back.
They're real people whose families have a void that they once filled.
They shoot and they don't think that they're taking away somebody from a home family. You are destroying a mother. You're destroying siblings. You're destroying cousins, grandparents, friends. I mean, when you take somebody that is loved as just, and you have destroyed tons of people.
I don't feel like the person who felt like they had the power to do that. I don't feel like they're powerful. I feel like he's weak. I feel like he's broken. And I pray for him.
I grieve for any family that has lost a loved one in this type of way. It's totally unacceptable for a civilized community to accept that as normal behavior. It is unacceptable.
The mayor continues to say that his office and the police department are doing everything that they can to curb the violence. It's important to note that while the year-to-year murder hike is alarming, last year's numbers were still about 40% below the highest homicide rates in the 80s and 90s. By the way, Dawson's family is having a memorial for his birthday this Saturday night at the Summit at Ridgewood Apartments, where he was killed. That's at 6.